How many of you have been using cell phones or mobile phones, televisions, computers, cars? Almost all of us, right? Have you ever thought that what's the power behind all these electronic devices? Guys, is the chip, the circuit boards, the processors. Yes, you heard that right. That's the power behind that. Collectively, they are called semiconductors. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Synonomics, the money machine. Today, I'm going to cover semiconductors, which has created a lot of buzz lately. With the whole AI boom going on right now, the AI boom is powered by chips, CPU, and predominantly, to be very precise, GPUs, graphic processing units. But what are these semiconductors? Well, semiconductor industry is actually the technology industry where the companies are involved in conceiving, designing, and manufacturing semiconductors. As the demand has been increasing for all these electronic devices, the growth of the semiconductor industry looks very bright. Right now, the market size is around $600 billion. In fact, 2022, the market size was $574 billion to be precise, which is supposed to grow to $1,380 billion by 2029. Yes, you heard that right. $1.4 trillion by 2029. And from the growth rate perspective, it's a whopping 12.2% CAGR, cumulative average growth rate. But hey, have you noticed very few countries are involved with this manufacturing? Just a handful of them. Let's look at them actually. 46% of the semiconductors are manufactured in Taiwan, 21% in South Korea, 15% in China, and only 10% in USA. Other than that, roughly 4% each is around Japan and Netherlands. So pretty much these 5 countries are dominating the market. But why is that? If this is such a promising market and semiconductor is such an important component of electronic devices, why other countries are not getting involved in the rat race? Let's look at that. We'll start with cost actually. The cost plays an important role. To manufacture 12 nanometer chip in Taiwan costs $1,500 whereas in USA it will cost $2,500. Yes, you heard that right. 75% higher cost of manufacturing. If you really look at the supply chain of semiconductor business, it's very complex as well. It's designed in USA, it's manufactured in Taiwan and South Korea, and is assembled in China. Also, to set up a plant which is called wafer fabrication facility. In short, it's called fab. I'll call that fab. To set up a fab of 2 mods, means 2 lines, on a daily basis, you need water worth of 150,000 people's drinking water. From the power perspective, you need 350 megawatt power, which is equivalent to 350,000 homes powered in USA. And almost 1 million homes powered in India. Yes, that's the consumption per day. And from the land size perspective, guys, it requires 250 acres of land. If some of you remember the size of the football ground, it's roughly 2 acres. So it requires 125 football grounds to set up that facility. Isn't it difficult? Let's also look at how this whole thing gets fabricated and tested and shipped out. So in all these fabs, wafer fabrication facilities, chips are actually created in silicon, and then they are actually shipped to these assembly and testing facilities. The finished wafers come to these assembly and testing facilities where they are cut into size, individual chip. They are cut into individual chips. And then they are actually used in the manufactured product. Once it's done, then it's tested for the performance and quality perspective. And then it's shipped to the customers. So pretty complex to set up, pretty complex operations, because in order to create those chip in the silicon, you have to go through a lot of chemical, mechanical, and optical processes. And also the role of the assembly and the testing units are very, very important. You need to have a separate unit there to assemble them, test them for performance and quality before shipping it out. Well, all these are the challenges out there, and I've already described the challenge of the supply chain. Now what has happened recently? With the COVID, there was a huge disruption in the supply chain that created a chip shortage. And many of these electronic devices, including the cars, guys, the car manufacturing got impacted. And now all these manufacturers and countries like US, for an example, are looking to set up factories outside of China, which is also called China Plus One. There's a new term that has come. It's called friend sourcing. Yes, you heard that right. It's called friend sourcing. Friend sourcing is actually outsourcing operations to the friendly countries. And now many of these companies have started looking into moving out from China. Also, Chinese government has been creating a lot of challenges for many of these companies. Micron was recently impacted, and Micron is planning to pull out of China. Actually, they are forced to do that. Intel, on the other hand, who actually reported not a very good year in 2023, they reported a loss. They are pretty much into a spending spree to set up these facilities throughout the world. Let's look at that. Last year, on 21st January 2022, Intel announced $100 billion investment in Ohio. They want to set up the world's largest chip manufacturing complex there. Just a few days back, on 16th of June 2023, Intel announced $4.6 billion investment they're going to make in Poland to set up assembly and testing unit. Europe is not new to them. Intel already has a fab factory, I would call that, in Ireland. They have also announced another one to be set up in Germany, by the way. Not only that, Intel has announced $25 billion investment to set up a fab facility in Israel. And Israel is not new to Intel. In 2017, they actually acquired a company called Mobileye. So with all these things, you can actually see how Intel is trying to move out. And actually, IDC has estimated that the total serviceable addressable market, that's called SAM, is going to be $500 billion for Intel, which is 7.2% CAGR, cumulative average growth rate. Not only that, NVIDIA, who actually gets all their GPUs, chips, manufactured by TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor company. They are trying to set up, in fact, they have started setting up a factory in USA because everybody is worried about the geographic tension between Taiwan and China. And just for your information, TSMC actually manufactures 50% of the chips in the world. In fact, Warren Buffett, who had a huge investment in TSMC, he has completely exited out of that. And he mentioned that he was worried about the tension, geographic tension going on between China and Taiwan. Well, the new kid on the block is India, by the way. As we all know, India is growing the fastest in the world. 7.2% GDP growth rate was there just now. They announced it for 2023. Now India is pretty much a rising star in the digital world. India now has an ambition to be one of the largest manufacturers of semiconductors. They are working on that, inviting tenders from many companies. And in fact, India has also set up a chip design center. Recently, Micron, which I actually just described, is pulling out from China because China is creating a lot of challenges for them. They have announced $2.7 billion investment, which is agreed by Indian government to set up a testing and assembly facility in Gujarat. Later on, they'll also think about manufacturing unit. Vedanta PLC, which is a listed mining company in London. It also operates in India as Vedanta Private Limited. They are also working with the government to set up a chip manufacturing company, again somewhere in Gujarat. So a lot of these things are actually happening in India as well. And Indian government is very much focusing on all these Make in India schemes. And guess what? 20% of the world's chip design engineers are Indians. So they can do it. Well, with this, guys, I'd just like to highlight that there is a lot of rush going on to grab that market of $1.4 trillion of semiconductors. Many of these companies are setting up their facilities around the world, which will be made ready for operations something around 2027 to 2035 timeframe. From the stock perspective, most of these companies are doing extremely well, except Intel. As I mentioned, Intel did not have a good year, 2023. In my next update or next episode, I will deep dive into Intel as an investment opportunity. Having said that, all the companies that I mentioned are not recommendations. Please consult your financial advisor for any investment decisions. This channel aims to create financial awareness so that you can make your own decision and act on it, make money. With that, it's a goodbye from your friend, Pankaj Sinha.